Hello guys and welcome back to the Mole episode 2, and where we left off in the last episode we had 3 people in danger of being eliminated. We had Diana, we had Niche, and we had Jennifer. It was chaotic, it was crazy, and this episode has potentially given us some more clues as to who the mole might be. So if you're interested in my thoughts, feelings and predictions, then make sure you stick around for the episode. Let's get into it, guys. So, very sadly, Jennifer was in fact the person who was eliminated from the competition. It was a sad moment. It really surprised me, but also I felt like she was not the mole anyway. So it kind of just confirmed my suspicion that it is actually one of the other 11. It's kind of wiped her off. I can clean her name off my whiteboard because I had a feeling that she was fine. There was a couple of little suspicious things about her, but the vibe I was getting from her was that she was actually wanting the money rather than wanting to sabotage the money. So I think that we're definitely in a very interesting position now because we've got 11 people who, for want of a better word, are shady. There's a couple of shady things going on, and I'm very, very interested to see what will happen in the next couple of episodes and who will be leaving, because currently it's feeling like there are a few people who are actively trying to sabotage, whether that's on purpose or whether that is completely separate to the actual mole's activities. So, the challenge in this episode was a treasure hunt. They had to split into 3 different teams. One of them would be going to a sunken ship, one of them would be going up to some rocks somewhere, and the other team would be building a raft to take the buried treasure to the pontoon out in the middle of the sea. So, it was an interesting challenge. They were split up and the teams were very, very interesting indeed. I'm going to start with Niche, Q and Tony. Was it Tony? Yeah, it was Tony. Those 3 headed off to a place called Smashing Rocks. All they had was a map to lead them there, and it was interesting because a lot of time was wasted looking for the actual destination, and they weren't anywhere near it. They stuck to the beach even though the map said it was inland, and Tony had the map and was like, I don't think we're in the right location. But Niche seemed very, very convinced that it was in this location and therefore they should keep having a look around for it. I don't know exactly whether that was on purpose or whether it was completely incidental, but it did raise alarm bells that actually maybe Niche is potentially one of the suspects, because there's no way that he looked at that map and thought, yeah, let's look on the beach for it. It was just a little bit concerning. So then they start walking into the jungle, and this is where things take a disastrous turn again, because they just get completely and utterly lost. Like, completely and utterly lost. So when they headed into the jungle, they were just finding it really, really difficult to find the actual location of the X marks the spot. What they didn't realize is that there were rocks that had Roman numerals on it, or like not Roman numerals, it was actually tally marks, and you had to count down the tally marks to lead you to the location. This took them an awful long time to notice, like an awfully long time, to the point where I think it was Q that was actually the one that noticed it. And then once they counted down the rocks, they got to the place that they needed to be at, and things took a disastrous turn again. I was sitting there thinking, hang on a minute, there is a net with obviously what you need in it, and you're not seeing it. You've not walked into this clearing and looked around at all. All you've been focused on is what is right in front of you. It's what made me think that maybe the mole isn't in this group, because all 3 of them missed it. Like, all 3 of them missed what was above them as they were, like, trying to open the sort of chests in front of them, or the crab traps, or whatever it was. It was just a little bit crazy to me that they all missed it, and it was only again when Q looked up that made me go, oh, okay, this is now twice that Q has saved this team from utter disaster and failure, so maybe he's innocent, maybe he's fine, maybe we can trust him. Currently, out of this team, the person who's looking most like the mole is Niche. I'm not really on board with him as a person in this game, because I just feel like currently, he sabotaged this group a lot at the beginning, and his just complete and utter blindness to what was happening in front of him just really shook me, to be honest. Tony noticed that they were completely on the wrong section of the map, and then Q noticed the two other things that they needed to do to complete the challenge. So, yeah, it was just a little bit bad, in my opinion. Moving on to the second group, we're going to talk about the raft building team first. This was Andy, Diana, Muna, and Sean, I think was the other one. This was an interesting team because the building the raft was very, very complicated. Now, I don't believe that the mole is in this group, so I was very much sort of watching them and being like, nah, everything seems legit. There were a couple of interesting things that didn't really add up. Like, Andy was using a lot of the wire on very non-important stuff, like all of the rope on the non-important parts of the raft, whereas he should have probably kept it for other parts. And it was only when Muna, I think it was Diana, actually called it out and was like, yo, you're using a lot of the rope. It might have been Muna, actually. Somebody in that group, one of the girls, said, you're using a lot of the rope, maybe we should save some of it. And Andy was like, oh yeah, cool, chill. Andy did a lot of the work on the raft, and so there was a lot of question marks around him, especially if the raft didn't work. But I think that he did a good job with the raft and it looked like it would work. And for the most part, it did work, but we'll get onto that later. So yeah, I feel like this group was pretty strong. There was not really much else. Muna was obviously wanting a smaller raft, whereas Andy wanted like a much bigger raft at first, but then they compromised on the smaller raft. So there wasn't a great deal of wrong things that happened in this group. A lot less than the other groups. So I feel like the mole is definitely not in this group. But obviously I could be wrong. Who knows? It could all change by the next episode when we get more information. So the last group in the challenge was actually the swimming team, the one that had to go out to the shipwreck. I really do believe that the mole is in this group. It has to be, because so many things were going wrong. There are a couple of people that I would like to give the benefit of the doubt to, and there are a couple of people that I would like to throw suspicion on. The first person that I wanted to throw suspicion on was Michael. And this is because when they were swimming around, Ryan found the shipwreck. It took them a long time to find the shipwreck, but Ryan found it. We obviously don't know whether she found it immediately or whether she noticed it, swam around for a little bit more in order to waste more time, and then was like, oh guys, it's here. But like, I'm giving Ryan the benefit of the doubt. I do feel like Ryan is actually here to gain the team money, so I will give her that. Michael, however, didn't exactly fill me with much confidence in this mission. He swam down to go get the first aid box, and when he picked it up, he then threw it, so it went further down, and then was like, oh guys, it was just too heavy and I couldn't get it up. And I had to go back and rewatch it. I had to rewind and I had to go, hang on a minute. Did he throw it? And it does look like he did go with it as he was like swimming up. Was that because it was too heavy and he needed breath, air, or whatever? I don't know. But it just didn't fill me with confidence that he did that. Then again, I don't feel like there would be such an obvious play from the mole, and whether if the show was trying to conceal the identity, they'd show that particular shot, because it does incriminate him and it does make him look bad. So that's the reason why I wasn't trusting Michael 100%. Then there's Melissa. And there's a couple of reasons why I didn't trust Melissa in this episode. There was a moment where they were talking about who is swimming down, coming up, and they were showing people attempting to swim down. And Melissa genuinely got less than a meter underwater before she swam back up and went, oh guys, I can't do it. My shoes are pulling me up. It just didn't look like she gave enough of an attempt to swim down, which is what a mole would do. The other three genuinely were doing their best, but I didn't feel like I got that from Melissa. The second thing that made me go, maybe it is Melissa, is the fact that this show has a penchant for introducing little clues and tidbits about who it could possibly be throughout the series. In the last series, there were so many clues as to who the mole was that, like, unless you were so eagle-eyed and you noticed things like that and you listened to everything that we heard, then you wouldn't have been able to pick up that it was the mole unless you were, like, paying attention to what their roles were in missions, etc., etc. So this time, I'm very much looking for clues as to who this could possibly be. There was a clue that was very evident to me. I don't know whether it is a clue or whether it is a sort of just words on a paper, but the clue for the mission was fold under pressure. And as soon as I heard that, I was like, that's a poker reference, right? Fold, when you don't have a winning hand, you fold. Under pressure, it's a very big pressure environment. So it had a double meaning for me in the sense of, like, it helped them with the mission, but for me, it was very much indicating that Melissa could be the mole in the fact that she's a professional poker player. And I was like, surely it's not that obvious, but also it lines up with, like, what I've been thinking about in the last couple of episodes. Last episode, she was part of the sniper trio that was, like, controlling the movement, and she could have been deliberately sabotaging it to stop Andy from eliminating the people. Who knows? In this episode, we saw her not really do much in the mission, if I'm being 100% honest. And then there's this, where it also indicts her a little bit more. So I have a feeling that this is probably something out of nothing, but it's probably worth mentioning and explaining that, because I really do feel like it is Melissa at this point. So the final stretch was taking the chests, putting them on the raft, floating it out into the ocean, and taking it to the buoy station that was, like, I don't know, 100 meters out or something like that. It was an interesting moment. I thought this was handled pretty well, apart from the fact that at one point, one of the barrels from underneath the raft popped up, and I don't know about you, but it did look just a little bit suspicious. I wasn't entirely sort of like, that happened naturally, because I trusted Andy to make that raft, and I feel like he did make it quite well. So I have a feeling that if that one popped out, then the other one surely should have as well. So I have a feeling that someone sabotaged that. But I went back and looked, and I couldn't see it because there was only like a small shot of the thing popping out, and there was just too much going on for me to actually analyze what was happening. But I do feel like, was that an accident? I don't know. Was it on purpose? I also don't know. There's just a lot of question marks around that situation currently. But they did manage to make the $15,000, which takes their total to $45,000 after only 2 episodes. Isn't that absolutely wild and crazy? However, the episode was not over there. The episode actually continued for a second challenge. And this challenge was for an exemption card from tonight's quiz. Oh, you can tell things get toxic when they introduce exemptions and people are like, we don't have to take the quiz. Absolutely, I want this. But the caveat was that their money was going to be deducted for every second that they played this game. It was crazy is what it was. The last person sitting in the room would get the exemption, but it would not end until one of two things happened. There was one person left in the room, or the money hit 0. If the money hit 0, no one got the exemption card. So it really was a battle of wits, a battle of, wow, who is going to actually tough this out and make it so that the team loses a lot of money just for them to gain an advantage in the game. It was very interesting to me that Melissa decided to drop out first in this game. Again, it's kind of supporting my theory that she's trying to seem innocent and make people think that she's not the mole. I'm really dead set on Melissa unless something proves me otherwise. So I feel like I'm going to be eating pie in like 3 or 4 episodes time when she goes home. But I do have a feeling it is Melissa. I feel like it is. And I feel like if I've called it this early, I'm going to look smart. And if I've called it this early and it's wrong, I'm going to look really dumb. So there was that. And then obviously Tony and Hannah were both sitting there going like, we'll take it to 0. We're getting this exemption. And they're both looking at each other like, ugh. And so, obviously, Diana was second out. Q was just getting pissed off and was shouting at people because he was obviously seeing this money drain. He was like, ah, rah, 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 rah. So then Nish and Q left. Then Andy, Sean, and Michael left. Then Ryan left. And then Muna left. And then it was just Hannah versus Tony. And this was really, really interesting in the sense of, like, I was expecting Tony to dip and allow Hannah to have it, but they ended the episode on the cliffhanger of who's going to get the exemption. So that is pretty much it for today. Before we finish off, my suspicions and my friend's suspicions. My friend seems to think that it's Melissa or Andy. I think it's Melissa or Nish, but I'm also throwing doubt on Michael as well, because if you remember, Michael was part of the dodgy sniper team, and he was also part of the swimming team and prevented them from getting the first aid kit on the first go by throwing it deeper, which just caused more time to be wasted. So lots of dodginess happening, but that is it for today. Thank you guys very, very much for watching. Hope you guys have enjoyed, and I will see you guys in the next episode, whenever that may be. But until then, keep on ranting. Bye now. See you later.